I thought my mother's love would set me free. Instead, it built a cage so beautiful. I didn't realize I was trapped until I could barely breathe anymore. Welcome to the last lesson. If this is your first time here, please subscribe for more real stories about heartbreak, healing, and finding your voice. Let's begin. My mom used to braid my hair every Sunday morning. I remember sitting on the floor between her knees, feeling her fingers work through the tangles with such careful precision. She'd hum old hymns while she twisted and tucked, and when she was done, she'd kiss the top of my head and say, "There. Perfect." Even then, I knew what she meant. You're perfect, as long as you stay exactly like this. I grew up believing my mother was a saint. Everyone in our community did. She was the woman who volunteered at church every Wednesday, who brought casseroles to grieving families, who raised me alone after my father walked out when I was 3. She worked double shifts as a nurse to put food on our table, and she never let me forget it, not in a cruel way, but in a way that made me feel like I owed her my entire existence. And maybe I did. Maybe that's what daughters are supposed to feel. She sacrificed everything for me. That's what she told me. That's what I believed. So when she started making decisions for me, I didn't question it. I thought it was normal. I thought all mothers chose their daughters' clothes until they were 16. I thought all mothers sat in on conversations with friends to make sure they were good influences. I thought all mothers read their daughters' diaries to stay connected. I was 12 when I found out she'd been reading mine. I came home from school one day, and she was sitting at the kitchen table with my journal open in front of her. My heart dropped into my stomach. "Mom, that's private." She looked up at me with soft eyes, the kind that made you feel guilty for even thinking she'd done something wrong. "Sweetheart, there are no secrets between us. I'm your mother. I need to know what's going on in that beautiful mind of yours so I can protect you." I didn't argue. I just stood there, feeling exposed and confused, wondering why protection felt so much like invasion. But I convinced myself she was right. She always knew better. She had to, because she'd lived longer, suffered more, sacrificed everything. By the time I was 14, she was choosing my friends. Sarah was too rebellious. Jessica was a bad influence because her parents were divorced. Emma was too obsessed with boys. One by one, my friendships faded, and I spent more and more time at home with Mom, watching her favorite shows, cooking her favorite meals, becoming a smaller, quieter version of myself. "You don't need a lot of friends," she'd say, stroking my hair while we sat on the couch. "You have me. We have each other. That's all we need." And I believed her. When it came time to choose a college major, I wanted to study creative writing. I'd been writing stories since I was 8. Little worlds I could escape into, characters who said the things I was too afraid to say out loud. I dreamed of becoming an author, maybe a journalist, someone who could tell stories that mattered. But when I mentioned it to Mom, her face changed. Not angry, just disappointed. "Writing." She set down her coffee cup slowly. "Baby, that's not a career. That's a hobby. You're so smart, you could be a doctor. You could save lives. You could make me proud." "I thought you were already proud of me," I said quietly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course I am. But I'll be so much prouder when you're Dr. Someone. Imagine that. After everything I've done for you, imagine giving me that gift." And just like that, my dream became selfish. Wanting to write became an act of betrayal. So I applied to pre-med programs. I studied biology and chemistry even though they made my head hurt and my heart feel empty. I memorized formulas and anatomical diagrams while my stories collected dust in a drawer I stopped opening. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I could write on the side. I told myself that making my mother happy was more important than some silly dream. But deep down, I was disappearing. Then I met Daniel. I was 19, halfway through my sophomore year, drowning in organic chemistry and existential dread, when he walked into the campus library. He had messy brown hair, paint-stained jeans, and the kind of smile that made you feel like the world wasn't as heavy as you thought. He sat across from me, pulled out a sketchbook, and started drawing. I tried to focus on my textbook, but I kept glancing up, watching his hand move across the page with such confidence, such freedom. "You can look," he said without looking up. I don't mind. My face burned. Sorry I wasn't. You were. It's okay. He turned the sketchbook around. It was a drawing of the library, the long windows, the dust particles floating in afternoon light, the girl hunched over her textbook looking like she wished she were anywhere else. Me. Is that how I look? I asked. Like you're suffocating? Yeah. He tilted his head. What's suffocating you? I should have laughed it off. I should have said something polite and generic. But instead, for the first time in years, I told the truth. Everything. We talked for 3 hours that day. He told me about his art, his dreams of opening a gallery someday, his complicated relationship with his own family. I told him about my mom, about pre-med, about the stories I didn't write anymore. Why did you stop? He asked. Because it wasn't practical. It wasn't what my mom wanted. But what do you want? No one had asked me that in so long. I didn't have an answer. Daniel and I started spending more time together. Study sessions turned into coffee dates, turned into long walks where we talked about everything and nothing. He made me feel seen in a way I'd forgotten was possible. He listened when I spoke. He laughed at my jokes. He read the one story I nervously showed him and told me it was beautiful. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. But I knew I couldn't tell my mom about him. Not yet. Because deep down, in a place I didn't want to look, I knew exactly what she'd say. I just didn't know how far she'd go to make sure I listened. I kept Daniel a secret for 3 months. 3 months of stolen moments between classes, of lying about study groups that didn't exist, of deleting text messages before my mom could ask to see my phone. 3 months of feeling alive and guilty at the same time, like happiness was something I had to hide. I told myself I'd tell her eventually, when the time was right. When I could find the perfect words to make her understand that Daniel wasn't a distraction, he was the first person who'd ever made me feel like myself. But there's never a perfect time to tell your mother something she doesn't want to hear. She found out on a Tuesday. I'd stayed late on campus, sitting in Daniel's art studio while he worked on a painting for his final project. I was supposed to be studying, but instead I was watching him, mesmerized by the way he mixed colors, by the concentration on his face, by the comfortable silence between us that didn't need to be filled. Come here, he said suddenly, setting down his brush. I walked over and he pulled me close, wrapping his arms around me from behind. We stood there looking at the canvas, a chaotic explosion of blues and golds that somehow made perfect sense. You inspire me, he whispered against my hair. My phone buzzed. Then again. Then 3 more times in rapid succession. My stomach dropped before I even looked at the screen. MOM, where are you? MOM, you said you'd be home by 7. MOM, it's 8:30. MOM, call me now. MOM, I'm worried sick. If you don't answer in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police. My hand started shaking. Daniel felt me tense, loosened his grip. Everything okay? I have to go, I said, already grabbing my bag. I'm sorry, I lost track of time and my mom. Hey. He caught my hand. Breathe. You're an adult. You're allowed to lose track of time. But he didn't understand. Nobody did. Being late wasn't just being late. It was disrespect. It was betrayal. It was proof that I was pulling away, becoming someone she couldn't control. I called her from the parking lot, my heart hammering. She answered on the first ring. Where are you? I'm sorry, I was at the library and... Don't lie to me. Her voice was ice. I called the library. You weren't there. My blood went cold. She'd checked. She'd actually called to verify my location, like I was a criminal suspect. I was with a friend, I said carefully. Studying at... What friend? What's their name? Mom, I'm 20 years old. I don't need to. You're 20 years old living under my roof, eating my food, going to school on my dime. Each word was a hammer. You don't get to have privacy when I'm the one sacrificing everything to give you a future. Now tell me where you were and who you were with, or don't bother coming home tonight. The threat hung in the air between us. She'd never said anything like that before. I should have stood my ground. I should have told her the truth right then. But I was terrified. So I lied. I was with Emma. We were studying at the coffee shop near campus. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. It won't happen again. Silence. Long enough that I thought she might have hung up. Come home, she finally said. We need to talk. The 20-minute drive felt like hours. I rehearsed explanations in my head, tried to prepare for whatever was waiting for me. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found when I opened the front door. My mom was sitting at the kitchen table. My laptop was open in front of her. My private laptop. The one with my password. Mom, what are you? Daniel Rivera. She said his name like it was poison. Art major. 21 years old. Lives off campus in what I can only assume is a disgusting apartment based on his Instagram photos. She looked up at me and her eyes were red. How long have you been lying to me about him? My legs felt weak. How did you get into my laptop? I'm your mother. I know all your passwords. You're not as clever as you think. She stood up and I could see her hands were shaking. I trusted you. After everything I've done for you, I trusted you. And you've been sneaking around with some artist who's going to end up living in a van, probably doing drugs, definitely wasting his life. You don't know anything about him, I said, finding my voice. Daniel is kind and talented, and he's a distraction. He's pulling you away from your future, from medical school, from everything we've worked for. She crossed her arms. You're going to stop seeing him. The words hit me like a slap. What? You heard me. You're going to end it. Tonight. Block his number, block his social media, and you're going to focus on what matters. Your education. Your future. Our future. You can't tell me who I can and can't see. I'm not a child anymore. Then stop acting like one. Her voice cracked. I'm trying to protect you. Men like him? They'll sweet-talk you, make you think you're special, and then they'll leave you pregnant and alone, just like your father did to me. Is that what you want? To throw away medical school for someone who's going to abandon you? Daniel is nothing like Dad, I said, but my voice was shaking now too. They're all the same. She took a step closer. And I won't stand by and watch you ruin your life for some boy who paints pictures. You're going to end it or I'm done. I'll stop paying for school. You'll be on your own. Let's see how much he loves you when you're drowning in student debt and working 3 jobs just to survive. The ultimatum hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her that this was emotional blackmail, that love wasn't supposed to come with conditions, that mothers weren't supposed to threaten their daughters into compliance. But I was 20 years old with $300 in my bank account and 2 years left of a degree I didn't even want. I was trapped. Okay, I whispered. Okay, what? I'll end it. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Her face softened immediately. She reached for me, tried to pull me into a hug. Oh, sweetheart, I know this hurts right now, but one day you'll thank me. One day you'll understand that I only did this because I love you more than anything in this world. I stood rigid in her embrace, feeling nothing but the crushing weight of her love pressing down on my chest, making it impossible to breathe. That night, I texted Daniel. We need to talk tomorrow. I couldn't do it over text. He deserved better than that. But as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while my mom slept peacefully down the hall, something inside me started to crack. For the first time in my life, I wondered if my mother's love was actually love at all, or if it was just another word for control. And in the darkness of my room, with tears sliding silently down my cheeks, I made a decision I didn't even know I was capable of making. I was done. Not with Daniel. Not yet. I'd figure that out tomorrow. But I was done pretending that this was normal, that this was healthy, that sacrificing every piece of myself was the price I had to pay for being someone's daughter. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have money or courage, or any idea how to survive without her. But as I reached under my bed and pulled out the drawer of stories I'd abandoned, running my fingers over pages filled with dreams I'd been told were worthless, something shifted. Maybe my mother was right. Maybe I would fail without her. Maybe Daniel would leave, and I'd end up alone and struggling. But maybe, just maybe, that would still be better than this. I met Daniel at our usual spot the next day, a bench near the campus fountain where we'd shared our first real conversation. He knew something was wrong the moment he saw my face. Hey, he said softly, reaching for my hand. I pulled away, and the hurt in his eyes almost made me lose my resolve. My mom knows about us, I said, staring at the water instead of at him. She went through my laptop. She found everything. Okay. He processed this, his jaw tightening. Okay, so we tell her the truth. We sit down with her, we show her that I'm serious about you, that I'm not. She doesn't want to meet you, Daniel. She wants me to end this. She wants me to block you and never see you again. The silence stretched between us. A group of students walked past, laughing about something. The world kept moving while mine fell apart. And what do you want? He asked, his voice careful. That question again. The one that always broke me open. I want. My throat closed up. I want to be with you. But she's threatening to cut me off. No more tuition, no more housing, nothing. And I can't. I don't have any money. I don't have anywhere to go. I can't just. So you're choosing her. I'm not choosing her. I'm just. I finally looked at him, and the understanding in his eyes was worse than anger would have been. I'm trapped. Can't you see that? This isn't about what I want. It's about survival. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said my mom was controlling too. Different, but I get it. And when I was 17, I had to make a choice. Keep being who she wanted me to be, or become who I actually was. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I chose myself. She didn't talk to me for a year. It was the hardest year of my life, but it was also the year I started living. I'm not as strong as you, I whispered. Yes, you are. You're just scared. He stood up, ran a hand through his hair. Look, I'm not going to pressure you. If you need to walk away to survive right now, I understand. But I need you to understand something too. He crouched down in front of me, made me look at him. This won't stop with me. She'll control your career, your friends, where you live, who you marry, how you raise your kids. It'll never be enough. And one day you'll wake up and realize you've lived someone else's entire life. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I don't know how to leave. You just do. One step at a time. One choice at a time. He wiped my tears with his thumb. And you don't have to do it alone. I'm here. And I'll be here whether you choose me or not, because this isn't about me. It's about you choosing yourself. I wanted to be brave. I wanted to be the girl in the story who stands up to the villain and claims her freedom. But all I could do was cry while he held me, and then watch him walk away when I told him I needed time to think. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of my mother being overly sweet, making my favorite meals, talking about medical school applications, acting like everything was perfect now that the distraction was gone. 3 weeks of me moving through life like a ghost, studying subjects I hated, pretending to be grateful, dying a little more inside every single day. And then she did something I couldn't forgive. I came home from class one Thursday afternoon to find her in my room. She was standing by my desk, holding a stack of papers. My stories, the ones I'd hidden in my drawer. The ones I'd started writing again in secret, late at night when she was asleep, my only lifeline to sanity. Mom, what are you doing? She turned to face me, and her expression was disappointed, almost sad. I found these while I was cleaning your room. You're still wasting time on this fiction. Those are private, I said, my voice shaking. You had no right. I have every right. This is my house. She held up the pages. Do you know what these represent? Time. Time you should be spending on your studies, on your future. Instead, you're filling your head with make-believe, living in fantasy worlds because you're too weak to face reality. Give them back. No. She walked past me into the hallway. I'm doing this for you. One day you'll understand. I followed her down the stairs, my heart pounding. Mom, please. Please don't. She walked into the kitchen and opened the back door. Our small backyard had a fire pit we used sometimes in the summer. No, I breathed. No, no, no. She dropped my stories into the pit and pulled out a lighter. MOM, stop. I lunged forward, but she'd already lit the pages. Flames consumed my words, my characters, my worlds. Months of work, years of dreams, all turning to ash while she stood there, arms crossed, watching. You'll thank me for this, she said calmly. I'm saving you from yourself. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, final, like a thread pulled too tight finally breaking. I turned around, walked back into the house, and went straight to my room. I pulled out my duffel bag, the one I'd used for summer camp when I was 13, and started packing. She appeared in my doorway 5 minutes later. What are you doing? Leaving. Her face went pale. Don't be ridiculous. You're upset, but I'm not upset. I'm done. I kept packing. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, the few precious things I couldn't leave behind. You burned my stories. You went through my private things. You tried to control who I love. You spent 20 years making me feel like I can't survive without you. But you know what? I'd rather fail on my own than succeed as someone I don't even recognize. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in my life. I zipped the bag closed, turned to face her. I'm leaving. Tonight. And I don't want you to call me or text me or try to fix this. I need to figure out who I am without you telling me. Her eyes filled with tears. Where will you go? You have no money, no job, no plan. You'll come crawling back in a week. Maybe I will, I said quietly. But at least it'll be my choice to come back. My choice. Not because you threatened me or manipulated me or made me feel guilty for wanting a life of my own. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. She grabbed my arm. I did everything for you, she said, and her voice broke. I gave up everything. My career, my life, my chance at love, all of it for you. And this is how you repay me. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw past the saint everyone thought she was. I saw a woman who was terrified of being alone. A woman who'd made me her entire identity because she didn't know who she was without me. A woman who'd confused love with ownership. And I felt sorry for her. I didn't ask you to give up everything, I said gently. That was your choice, just like this is mine. I pulled my arm free and walked out the door. I had $287 in my bank account, a bag full of clothes, and absolutely no idea what I was going to do next. But as I sat in my car in the driveway, hands shaking on the steering wheel, tears streaming down my face, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. And underneath the fear and uncertainty, something else was stirring. Something small but growing stronger with every breath. Hope. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Daniel. I chose myself. Can we talk? Then I started the car and drove away from the only home I'd ever known, toward a future I'd have to build from nothing. It was the most terrifying thing I'd ever done. It was also the beginning of everything. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to The Last Lesson for more true stories about heartbreak, healing, and finding the courage to choose yourself. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Your support means everything. Thank you for listening.